What's going on, guys? J-Hoyd back with you. Today, welcome back to Call of Duty Vanguard. We are back here playing some ranked play, getting some good games in after the Pro-Am Classic. Yes, we have the recap, not really the recap, but we have the post-CDL Pro-Am power rankings. I think that's a mouthful of words. So if you guys missed it, or if you guys don't know what this is, they took the 12 CDL pro teams, they took the 4 amateur teams or the challengers teams that competed in the Minnesota Open event, and those 4 teams that qualified from that event play in this Pro-Am Classic, and then they played as 16 teams, 4 groups, 4 per group. Top 2 made it to a single elimination bracket, and then they go and just play out the bracket, and we determine a winner. So now that you're all caught up on what the Pro-Am Classic was, let's get into the post-event recap. So let's quickly, well, we kind of already went over it, so we're not going to go too much into it. So if you haven't seen that video, make sure you go watch it. So a good event nonetheless, but we're excited to get into major number 3. So if you guys don't remember the last power rankings video, make sure you go watch that as well. So we're going to start off with our new power rankings here. We have in 12th place, holding this spot, I think it's all season long at this point, the Paris Legion. So this team, again, is just, it's so hard not to put this team in last place. The Paris Legion win versus the LA Guerrillas. They win versus the Toronto Ultra Academy NA North American team, and then they lose to Boston. They go into bracket play, and then they lose in the first round versus the New York Subliners. So, again, Guerrillas had a really rough event. Toronto Ultra Academy NA is a challengers team, but somehow they get past them, which I was really hoping. That the Toronto Ultra Academy NA team would have gotten into bracket play over Paris. It would have been really a sight to see. And then they lose versus Boston, which is kind of expected there. Again, not just Paris, just awful. And then they lose versus Subliner. So not too bad of a showing from Paris. You know, they beat 2 teams that you probably wouldn't expect them to beat. You probably would expect them to go 0-3 and not even make it to bracket play. But they make it to bracket play, and then they lose. So, again, Paris, I don't know what you need to do, you know, other than literally anything else. Then we have the Minnesota Rocker in 11th place. This team just doesn't have it together. They do make a roster change before this event. They bring in Havoc, put him on an SMG with Standy. They move Attached to the Flex and Priesta to the main AR. They drop Major Maniac to the bench. I mean, I don't know if that was the right decision. Priesta's been kind of the one guy that's been struggling. So they win versus Toronto Ultra. They lose to Optic and Toronto Ultra. Okay, I definitely messed that one up. Minnesota wins versus Toronto Ultra. They lose to Optic, and they also lose versus the Toronto Ultra Academy EU, and did not make our bracket. So, again, was dropping Major Maniac to the bench the best decision for your team? Probably not. I think you probably should have dropped Priesta. I think he was the biggest problem on that team. Maybe they make a decision, you know, in between, you know, this event and Major 3. Or I guess the qualifiers, but also you have 5 matches before the next event. Do you try this team out for one round of, or you know, one set of matches, and then maybe try out Major Maniac, you know, with whatever other roster? Maybe drop Priest to the bench and put in Major as your main AR and see how that team works. You know, something needs to change with Minnesota. You know, they're trending in the wrong direction here. Along with our next team, in 10th place, the Seattle Surge. So this team loses to Atlanta, Toronto Ultra, and Strike X, and did not make the bracket. For one of the teams that we said does not need a roster change, you know, we expect more from these guys. They look to be in the hunt for top 8, just is not putting it together anymore. I don't know what it is exactly that's making this team struggle, but they're falling in the wrong direction as well. And I don't know what to do to fix that team, because you have solid players throughout that squad. Pred and Sib as two young players, you know, yes, they're rookies, but again, they have so much talent on them. Then you have Mac, who's been in the league for what, a year or two now, and then Accuracy is your main AR veteran leader. What do you need? What do you need to change this team for the better? I don't know. But in 10th place, they will sit. In 9th place, also another team trending in the wrong direction. The team that won the most recent major, the Los Angeles Guerrillas. And I said it, this is most likely a one-time thing for this team, and they'll go back to being awful. Well, they're down 4 spots in our power rankings. They lose to Boston, they lose to Paris, and they lose to Toronto Ultra Academy NA, and did not make our bracket. So they were in Group D. I mean, what do you even say? 0-3, 4-9 map count. Again, just not looking good. You know, the Volk is out, so that was Spart's claim to fame for being this team, but I think you need to bring Gunless back in when he's ready and when he's healthy again, and just get back to your old roster and hope something helps, because that fluke run, if you want to call it that, like, your honeymoon is over. Like, it's you're back to reality, and you're just not, you did not perform well this event. Up to another team that has looked a little bit better recently. That's going to be the Toronto Ultra. So the team that was actually sporting 3 teams at this event, with Toronto Ultra Academy NA, and EU. This team actually looked pretty good. They beat Seattle, they beat Strike X, and then they lose to Atlanta. So most likely what you'd expect out of this team, to beat the 2 teams at the bottom and to lose to Atlanta. That's how I would have predicted it if it would have made a predictions video for it. And then in bracket play, they beat the Florida Mutineers, which, again, given how good Toronto can be, is not surprising. But also, Florida's been playing really well, which we'll get to later on here. And then they lose to the Subliners in the second round, which had a really hot event, which, again, we'll get to here in a minute. But is this the start of them turning everything around? Are we back to Toronto, you know, fighting for a top spot here? We got to do something, right? They looked not good. Is this a turnaround? You know, we'll have to wait and see in major number 3. Didn't mean for that one to rhyme, but either way, we move up to number 7, the LA Thieves. You know, another team that has all the talent in the world, has been struggling, but now they look to be on the upswing here. They move up 1 spot in our power rankings with a win versus London, a win versus Team War, and a loss to the Subliners, which then leads them into bracket play with a win versus Boston, a win versus Optic with a substitute, which again we'll get to in a second, and then they lose to, spoiler, the New York Subliners in the grand finals. And like I put here, this team has new roles. Kenny and Envoy are the submachine gun players, Draza as the flex, and Octane as your main AR. So again, this is the first event with that team with the new roles, and you know, obviously they went to the grand final, so a huge improvement from what we've seen so far. But on to the team that this team lost to. In 6th place, up 5 spots from number 11, the New York Subliners, with a win versus the LA Thieves, London, and Team War. A whopping tournament, a group play for this team, 9-1 map count, with a new roster as well. Kismet in, Neptune out. Like I said, wins versus LA Thieves, London, and Team War. Into bracket play, they win versus Paris, Toronto, LA Thieves again, and they win the event, which again was a crazy event. Like, don't get me wrong, it was crazy, but this definitely should not have been a single elimination bracket. Changed my mind. But again, great performance from the Subliners, a great turnaround for this team. Can we expect more from this going into Major 3? We'll have to wait and see how they do going forward. Our next team, the London Royal Ravens, at number 5, down 2 spots from number 3. They win versus Team War, but they lose to LA Thieves and the New York Subliners, and did not make bracket play. For this team that's been, I don't want to say dominant, but has been really good all year long, you know, has been considered a top 3 team all year long. What happened? I mean, they do have a new roster going into this. They brought in Harry. Gizmo goes out, you know, due to personal reasons. So again, they didn't really have much time to play with their substitute, with their new fill-in, new roster, whatever you want to call it. And they didn't really look necessarily great. 1 and 2 on the event, did not make bracket play. So again, once they have time to play with a new roster, once they have time to mesh with this new team, how will they look then? But until we see something better, they sit at 5th place. Up to 4th, the Florida Mutineers up 2 spots from before with wins over Optic, Texas, and Minnesota, and along with Toronto Academy EU. And then in bracket play, they end up getting first rounded by the Toronto Ultra. So again, Florida's been a team that's been able to upset for a while now. They've been looking like a top 5, top 4 team for a good majority of the year. But then they lose to a team that has been struggling, but kind of put it together from this event a little bit, but has been struggling for the most part. So Florida's one of those weird teams. I mean, we've kind of said it all year long. We have a top 2 teams, and then we have like a 3 through like 9, 8, 10, whatever, like whatever you want to put it. And then you have like Paris at the bottom. So it's like 3 through 11 could all be, you know, all switched up in there. So Florida does move up 2 spots. In 3rd place, we have the Boston Breach with wins versus the LA Guerrillas and Paris Legion, losing to Team War, going into bracket play, getting first rounded by the LA Thieves. Again, like we have a top 2 teams, then we have a 3rd through like 11th that could be interchanged every single event. So a very interesting dynamic that Boston does have. And in 2nd place, it's probably no question who's our top 2. It's Atlanta FaZe. And once again, the only reason that Atlanta FaZe is in 2nd place is they have not beaten Optic yet, which we'll get into later on here. So Atlanta FaZe goes 3-0, 9-2 map count. They beat Toronto, Strike X, and Seattle. And then they go into bracket play versus Optic Texas, playing with a substitute, and they lose. Again. So I don't know what it is with Atlanta, but they just cannot beat Optic no matter what right now, which kind of proves that Optic is the best in the game, which is why these 2 teams still hold the same 2 spots as they have all year long, which means, of course, Optic Texas is our number 1 team. Loss versus Florida, win versus Minnesota, and Toronto Academy EU. And then in bracket play, like I said before, they beat Atlanta in the game 5, and then they lose to the LA Thieves. So one big thing with this event. Going to this event, illey has been dealing with a thumb injury. I believe it's on his right hand, which is like in his, like, obviously it's his shooter, aimer hand, thumb, whatever. So he tried to play versus Florida. They got smoked. General comes in versus Minnesota and Toronto Ultra Academy EU, and the rest of the event after that. So General is the main AR, doesn't really fit in there. So it was hard, right? They win the searches more often than not. Respawn struggled. And for coming 4th place in this event with a substitute that has a role clash, shows that Optic can be a very good team, if not the best team, with a substitute. And especially beating FaZe, which has been arguably a number 1A, 1B team all year long. Pretty damn good showing from them. Atlanta, where did they bow? Oh, that's right. They lost to Optic in the first round. I was going to say, where did they finish? So they finished, I think it's top 8 at the end of the day. So, again, a hard event for a lot of these teams. Single elimination doesn't always prove, who's better. Any team can show up on any given day. Look at New York and LA Thieves. Are those guys going to show up and do really good things at stage 3? Who knows? But It does show promise for some of these teams that have been on the decline. It does show some teams that need to make a change if they want to make it to champs at the end of the year. And overall, we're in for a great rest of the year with Stage 3 qualifiers coming up, with Stage 3 Major, Stage 4 qualifiers, Stage 4 Major, and I believe there's champs all the way at the end. We're in for a damn good year, and I cannot wait to see it. But that's going to be it for today's video. If you did enjoy, hit that like button down below if you haven't yet, or if you're brand new here, make sure to subscribe, turn those post notifications on so you never miss an upload, and don't forget, you can always change your mind later. With all that being said, guys, we'll see you in the next one.